The suffocating air, thick with the stench of death and a cloying, metallic sweetness, clung to King Manasseh like a burial shroud woven by his own despair. Invisible bonds, cold as grave dust, tightened with each frantic, useless struggle, drawing him deeper into the living nightmare. His reign, a tapestry of turmoil and shadowed ambition, had led him to this precipice. He had sought forbidden power, delving into the blackest corners of ancient rituals to secure his throne. When the very ground beneath him had dissolved. One moment, solid earth. The next, a sickening plummet into a chasm choked with gnarled, twisted roots, the abyss of his own idolatry and occult depravity. He'd slammed into the bottom, his soul screaming in voiceless agony, ensnared instantly by the impossibly strong sticky web of his own dark choices. Above him, 8 obsidian eyes, beady and intelligent with an unnerving malevolence, fixed upon him. The faint sickly light filtering through the unseen canopy revealed the horror of the spider's lair in gruesome detail. All around him, hanging like grotesque, macabre ornaments, were the mummified husks of past victims, the kings and nations who had dared to strike similar bargains. Their spiritual life force drained, their forms preserved in the silken cocoons of eternal damnation. A cold dread, colder than any tomb, seeped into Manasseh's very bones. This was the dominion of the great deceiver, a place where hope withered and the true God's light was a forgotten whisper. "Please," Manasseh rasped, his voice raw and ragged with pure terror, "do not consume me utterly." To his unutterable horror, a voice deep and resonant like the grating of boulders shifting in the earth's belly, echoed not in the air but directly within his mind. "Why not? King Manasseh? You have already strayed so far from your God. You are already snared. You are mine. You sought power, and now you are within my grasp, caught in the webs of your own making." Satan spoke, through the monstrous form of the arachnid. Manasseh swallowed, his mind a frantic, desperate maelstrom, clawing for an escape, a way to preserve his throne. His miserable life, his very being. He would not be lost. He would not star. A monstrous, chilling idea, a perversion of sacrifice, began to take root in the desolation of his soul. "I can be useful to you," he blurted out, the words tasting like ash and bile. "More useful alive than utterly consumed. I can bring you offerings. Souls. Easier to corrupt. I will build altars to your likeness throughout my kingdom." The ancient evil remained motionless, its gaze an unwavering, predatory stare. The gravelly voice rumbled again, a chilling vibration in Manasseh's very core. What offerings could a snared king bring to the prince of this world? "Children," Manasseh stammered, the word catching in his throat. A chilling echo of his own historical transgressions. Of the innocent blood already on his hands. Innocent ones. Not merely symbolic. "I will cause them to pass through the fire, leading them directly into your influence. Sacrificing them to the idols I will raise in your honor. Pure, untainted, before they even know the true God." He trailed off, the horrific offer hanging in the oppressive air between them. A bargain for his own temporal and spiritual salvation at the cost of the most vulnerable. The most defenseless. A shiver, slow and deliberate, ran down the spider's immense body. A ripple of what Manasseh dared to hope was interest, the dark pleasure of a covenant being forged. Slowly, agonizingly, it lowered itself closer, its fangs dripping with unseen venom, gleaming in the dim, hellish light, symbols of tempting power and the blackest of false promises. Manasseh braced himself, every fiber of his being stretched taut with a terror beyond words. Then a chittering sound, like dry leaves skittering across barren stone, emanated from the creature, a sound that oddly conveyed a profound, unholy satisfaction, a dark covenant sealed in the echoing silence of the abyss. The web around him loosened, just enough for him to wriggle free, though the sensation of the sticky, soul-clinging silk peeling from his skin was repulsive. A violation. He scrambled away, desperate to put distance between himself and the monstrous arachnid, the embodiment of the pure evil that now held his soul in thrall. As he stumbled into the metaphorical undergrowth of his renewed, yet irrevocably tainted existence, the spider's deep voice resonated, clear and cold within his mind, Fail, King Manasseh, to deliver these souls unto me, to lead your people into complete idolatry. And I will come for you. And I will feast upon your eternal damnation, and your kingdom shall fall. The agreement made, Manasseh stumbled out of the ravine, his spirit throbbing with the festering wound of his decision. He, a king meant to shepherd his people towards righteousness, a leader whose true duty was to God, had damned himself and countless others. His own children, his royal heirs, their innocent lives now implicitly part of this terrible bargain, were seared into his conscience, a stark, agonizing contrast to the monstrous pact he had struck. The thought of explicitly offering his own flesh and blood to the eight-legged horror was already a part of his dark history. A line he had already crossed, but now the horrifying scale of his future obligations loomed like a shadow over his very existence. He had to deliver. He couldn't fail. He wouldn't. Driven by a desperate self-preserving terror for his own immortal soul and the fragile stability of his earthly kingdom, Manasseh began to haunt the spiritual shadows of his land. His gaze now sharpened, cold, and predatory. His targets were not the cherished souls nurtured by loving faith in the true God, but the impressionable, the misguided, the spiritually orphaned, those whose cries for true guidance went unheard amidst the clamor of pagan worship. In his twisted mind, he began to rationalize his horrifying task. Each thought a further descent into depravity. These souls, he reasoned, were already inclined to sin, already straying from the path. He was simply accelerating their inevitable demise, cementing his own power and ensuring his survival. He convinced himself that he would actually be performing a service, consolidating his rule, ridding the land of little vermin that no one truly wanted for God, that no one would miss, those deemed beyond God's reach, ripe for temptation and sacrifice to his new dark overlord. But deep down, a profound division tore at his very being. Manasseh was not merely a pagan. He had known the true God. He was not a natural-born agent of evil, but a king who had fallen, catastrophically. And though he would not be the one to directly corrupt every soul, merely to establish the altars and lead his people down into Satan's dark dens of idolatry and child sacrifice, he knew with a horrifying certainty that clawed at his sanity, that he would be as culpable as if he had directly whispered lies into every trembling heart. The crushing weight of his actions, and the chilling emptiness that grew within him with each passing day, began to carve a new terrifying landscape within his soul, a desolate testament to his profound and tragic fall from grace. King Manasseh fulfilled his horrific pact. He reopened the pagan shrines his father Hezekiah had destroyed, built altars to Baal, set up Asherah poles, and indeed, led his people to sacrifice their own children in the fire to false gods, all under the chilling, unseen gaze of the entity that had snared him. The spiritual fabric of Judah became irrevocably tainted, woven with threads of terror and apostasy. Manasseh found his temporary security, his throne remained, but his soul became a desolate wasteland, haunted by the echoing cries of the innocents and the gravelly, triumphant promise of his dark master. The chilling emptiness within him grew until it threatened to consume him whole, a living embodiment of the bargain he had struck. For all his rationalizations, the knowledge of his profound, unforgivable guilt was a corrosive acid, eating away at the last vestiges of his tormented conscience. The story of King Manasseh, caught in the spider's web of temptation and despair, offers a profound and timeless lesson we must carry with us throughout our lives. A warning etched in blood and tears. It teaches us that *** evil often presents itself not as a roaring beast, but as a seductive whisper, offering false solutions and a path of least resistance when we are most vulnerable. When our souls are weakest. ***, it preys on our deepest fears, promising security or power in exchange for our integrity and the sacrifice of others. Especially the seemingly unwanted or marginalized, those whispered to be disposable. The core lesson, a terrifying truth, is this: ***, no soul. No life is ever truly unwanted or disposable in the eyes of true goodness. ***, to rationalize the harm of the vulnerable for personal gain. Comfort or survival is to make a pact with the very forces of destruction that seek to devour us whole. It is a descent into complicity where we become the willing agents of the very evil we initially feared. a transformation into the monstrous. Such bargains, while appearing to offer escape, only lead to deeper enslavement, turning our supposed freedom into a gilded cage of unimaginable guilt and spiritual desolation. A living hell. The ultimate price of surrendering our moral compass is not just the suffering of those we sacrifice, but the slow, agonizing death of our own soul, leaving behind only the shriveled, empty husk of who we were meant to be, a hollow echo of a human being. We are constantly faced with choices, and the path of righteousness, though often difficult, agonizingly so, is the only one that truly leads to life. For the alternative is always a descent into a web from which true escape is agonizingly rare, a torment beyond measure.